Hello and welcome to this online music profile. My name is Jane Cornwell. I am the jazz critic for the London Evening Standard and a writer for Jazzwise music magazine. This webcast is with the amazing Joanna Duda, who is a Gdansk-born, Gdynia-based composer, pianist, performance and interdisciplinary artist. Alongside many side projects in music, film and theatre, Joanna is focused on her solo work. Her 2019 album Keen explores multi-layered narration, and her Joanna Duda Trio combines electronics and traditional jazz. One thing that really makes you stand out for me is this astounding versatility that you have. But you've said that this versatility can be both a blessing and a curse.
Back in the days, I wanted to do kind of everything, being classically trained pianist and then to be into the jazz and electronic music and club music as well. After some time, I had to, cut some of the projects, cut out because I just couldn't do everything.
Let's talk a bit about your background. We're seeing a photo here of you, age 7, playing your father's keyboards. Tell us a bit about where your music comes from. Did you grow up in a musical family?
My father, he is a piano player. And my mom, she is a singer. In the communistic times, they were having a band. They started work in Poland and then they went abroad. Thanks to that, they were having access to the music that in Poland it was almost impossible, to have. They were very into jazz and they got lots of vinyls with Herbie Hancock, with Earth, Wind and Fire, Average White Band, Weather Report. And I grew up on that. I went to classical school. And I started playing piano and I really went into the classics, Bach, Baroque music, Mozart.
Something happened to you when you were around about the age of 10 where you were fiddling around with some Windows computer, and it's something that seems to have changed your career path.
My dad, he bought a computer, first PC. I was having lots of music on that computer. I was having Winamp and some kind of media player. In case of Winamp is not working, it was a media player and something else for the MP3s that I was stealing with Napster or some other silly program. Once 2 of the players started to play 2 different MP3s at the same time. And it happened for a few seconds and I did something and it stopped and I was like, oh my God, it was so fullifying sound. And I realized very fastly it is something that I'm looking for actually. There was also the times that I was practicing my piano and I was having these 2 other persons in that practicing rooms next to each other. And one person was practicing Bach and another one was practicing Prokofiev, and it was very, very, very advanced polyphony. And I was like, it's interesting. In that cacophony, I could find some things that they were actually started to play with each other together.
So something at the intersection of these 2 sounds really resonated.
Exactly. These 2 people, they were in a trance. That trance was bringing it together somehow. And after a while, you could imagine it's a one piece.
In terms of role models growing up, certainly female instrumentalists in Polish jazz, were there any?
Honestly, they just started to appear. It's a very young generation of women who are really starting to be visible. Before that, actually, I knew just singers, and it was, of course, Urszula Dudziak that I was having also a great pleasure to play with.
She did, is it Papaya? Was that her famous tune?
Yeah, of course we did Papaya.
For you as a female band leader, have you had there's always the stories that you come in and that people will think you're the singer?
It's not happening since few years. Nobody asked me for that. But it was kind of usual situation.
You studied classical piano. How did this feed into your current outlook, specifically the idea that you have now of really kind of going with feelings rather than technique. What was it like having that classical education?
In classical music, it is very much about the technique. You need to really sit and to remember, to memorize things, to know every note, like from every side of it. But I was this type of person that I was afraid of making mistakes, so it was killing me.
You said that what was so great about jazz is that you can make a mistake and it doesn't matter, or nobody knows, or you can use it for something else.
Yeah, but it was something that I realized after years. The mistake is only in your head, and when you're playing classical, you can also think about it like that. You can make out of the mistake the most brilliant thing that you played in your life, if you know how to do it, and if you're like really using your imagination.
You started off with various duos and trios, but there's one duo called J equals J, where you explored this sort of idea of rhythm. Who else was in the duo J equals J with?
Janek Młynarski, the drummer.
Let's watch a little bit of J equals J. How do you go about composing? What equipment do you use?
I'm like practicing on the piano, and some ideas are starting to come to my mind, and I'm playing them, and I'm starting to register them with the dictaphone. After I'm like finding some nice idea, I'm starting to develop it, and then I'm making the whole piece out of it. Or I'm making some notes because sometimes I cannot play something and I know I'd like some rhythmical structure or something which is happening more in a describable way. And it's always a very long time of, searching for something interesting. And sometimes it's just like, I don't know, I'm just putting a sound and suddenly the whole construction comes out of the sound. Like it was with the Fug on my Keen album. I was checking a synthesizer. I was looking for some very, very long sound, and suddenly it was this very slow thing coming on, and it made it was already the theme of the whole piece.
So you've got so many different projects, including visual art installations, and you did the soundtrack for the recent Netflix anthology film Erotica 2022. You play everything from the piano to the Ableton to getting sounds out of broken or dilapidated instruments. Then there's your ongoing work with the physical theatre Buto dance company Amareya Theatre in Dansk. Let's have a glimpse of a 2020 performance called Skin. Let's talk a little bit more about this music that you've called Cheat the Brain.
I think I'm finding it as very advanced form of a polyphony. If you get to use to few layers that they are repeating somehow, or they are logically matching with each other, it's starting to be very interesting. It all comes from the rhythm, I guess. When I once heard a DJ Crush tune, it was from the album Message from the Depth. It's the first tune, and there is this very, very strange rhythm use there. It's like you cannot find one there at all. I mean, you can memorize it, but you don't know where is it. So the music itself, it's pulsing. The layer, which is not rhythmic at all, and the rhythm sounds a little bit like a random one, but it's not. And after a while, it's really like, wow, it's hot. This is one of my inspirations.
Well, your solo debut in 2013 was called The Best Of, which is a great title for a solo debut, and featured many young guns from the Polish jazz and electronic scene. And you did interpretations of Chopin and Ravel. You kind of deconstructed them really, and alongside electro, jazz, pop miniatures. In 2019, you released your second solo album, Keen, which we've touched on, which is piano electronica works, all composed by you. And you've used various adjectives to describe Keen. You've called it zealous, poignant, acute, deep and frisky. And I'd also add romantic. And I think that that's an adjective that's used a lot for to describe Polish music, but it's something you wouldn't think is used to describe your music, but it is, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I'm a very emotional person. And you can hear it in my music. Emotions are beautiful, and I just want to communicate with them. I want to communicate with some beautiful ideas. This is the power of my music, I guess. It's very intellectual, but it's emotional as well.
Let's take a look at the opening track of King. How did your solo work lead into doing the trio work?
When I started to work on my solo project, I thought I'm going to perform it with the trio. But then I realized it's not the way I want to do it. So the trio became something separate.
Who else is in the trio?
It's Maximilian Mucha on double bass and Michał Bryndal on drums.
When you perform with Maximilian and Michał, what is the vibe like? Talk us through about when you're on stage and you have an audience. Do you prepare off stage first?
After a while, the trio developed as well. I started to write more complicated compositions, lots of playing together, lots of unisons, and it started to be closer to the contemporary classical project. We've got also tunes which are based on just some ideas. For instance, I'm putting a loop. Michael has to play just one sound, like, once for a second, and Max just making one gliss, like once per minute. Something very minimal and very quiet.
Since 2008, Joanna, you've been a member of the Wojtek Mazolewski Quintet. How did you get involved there, and what side of you does playing in that quintet access?
We've met with Wojtek after Pink Floyd's concert in Katowice, and we started to talk, and somehow it was so good vibe between us that a few months later he called me and he invited me to his band. We created Quintet together, and we are creating until now.
Well, let's have a little look at you playing here in one of Giles Peterson's Brownswood basement sessions, and we've got a few seconds of your solo. You have a new album coming out in May. Is this work you've developed live since you got together, or are there many brand new compositions?
There are some compositions like they are completely new, but we've played them already on Just Stop At in November 2020. You can expect something different than on Keen, for sure. It's not so much electronics there, and there are even some completely acoustic pieces there.
You've been such a trailblazer in the field of jazz, Joanna Duda, and it's been a real delight to talk to you. Thank you so much. We're going to leave with some Joanna Duda Trio playing at Jazz to Pad. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.